The world is waking up to the power of crypto, and we are seeing this with new NFT and token launches every day, all using blockchain technologies. We're also seeing huge marketing spends by crypto exchanges and platforms, and so this season, we are speaking to the marketing leaders of those crypto companies. Hosted by Brave Software and me, Donnie Dvorin. You're listening to a new episode of the Brave Marketer Podcast, and we're excited about this one because we feature Dr. Jesse Aggroed Reich, and Aggie, as I like to call him, was a chemistry professor before launching a successful career in the educational software industry where he was doing sales. He's always been a lifelong gamer, and Aggie both played games and created them as a hobby. But in 2016, he started using the blockchain-based blogging platform Steemit to have an immutable place to free write on topics he wanted to investigate. So then later in 2018, with his buddy Matt Rosen, they created and co-founded the Splinterlands game. And today, Splinterlands is one of the largest dApps in the world. And you're going to love this episode because we discuss the Splinterlands game itself, strategy versus luck, how they marketed the game in the early days, lots of word of mouth going on. And then we get into his predictions for the future of blockchain gaming, crypto, NFTs, this idea of the supply and demand of NFTs I think you're going to find really interesting. So now let's get to our pick of the week, and we want to highlight one of the brands. And what we're going to do is we're going to stay with the gaming theme of it, and so we're going to highlight Versus. Versus is a strategy trading card game, and they feature art from legendary artists, and you can collect all the art and play the games. And as far as what they ran with Brave, they ran sponsored images to build brand awareness and educate our users about their NFTs, artists, and games. They saw impressive results. CTR across both sponsored image days were above our benchmark. Brand awareness increased 70% from pre to post campaign. We did a brand survey to figure that out. And of the people who recalled seeing the sponsored image, 2 out of 3 clicked on the ad. Now is today's episode of the Brave Marketer. Aggie, welcome to the Brave Marketer Podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to keep doing business with Brave, and thanks for having me here.
We are so stoked that you are a customer, and we're so happy about the success of your game, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. But why don't we start with just a more general question of what are you working on right now? What's the most exciting thing that you're jazzed about currently?
So Splinterlands is like this a game. We've done pretty well. We're one of the biggest dApps in the world. And we currently have a single product, and we're starting to shift our focus to be able to support more than one project at the same time. So 2022 looks really fun because I think that there's a lot of partners and projects and people that we can get involved with moving beyond. We've basically showcased how the technology and the platform and the people and the artwork and the projects that we do, we can build scalable solutions on blockchain. And now the question is, who else can we work with to help bring as many people into the blockchain space as possible?
How would you explain Splinterlands in kind of an elevator pitch, and then why don't you go into a bunch more detail?
Yeah, so Splinterlands is a trading card game, and we're built using blockchain technology, and that enables us to play anytime, trade anytime, and earn every win. We have 1.8 million registered users. I have a little over 800,000 paying customers. Our daily active users is like 500,000 or a little bit more or less on any given day. We've played over 1 billion games. We play about 10 million games per day. I'm in 142 countries, I think 10 different languages, and we're just one of the biggest dApps that are in the world. So our focus as a company came about really because as I went looking around the world, I realized that there's a lot of problems with it. And the sort of like...
Problems with the world?
Yeah, lots of them. And I kept thinking like when I went through it, I saw there was a lot of war, there was a lot of poverty, and this surveillance state is absolutely hideous. And when I started looking for what are the antidotes to that, it's peace, it's prosperity, and freedom. And then it became, what are the tools that help do that? And the strongest, most powerful tool I've ever found is cryptocurrency, which isn't just specific to anything that Splinterlands is doing, but it's about getting people into crypto and experiencing the prosperity comes as we create new tokens and new environments and NFTs, that there's peace, that when you engage with your neighbor in a commercial relationship, you are less likely to fight with them because you want peace between your business partners. And ultimately, some of the ways that you can act with pseudo-anonymity or that there's no centralized power means that you really don't have that same kind of surveillance state and enclosed, concentrated power of technology. It's much more open and broad, and we all operate on this same platform with kind of like some level of equality that the centralized services don't offer. So I really fell in love with crypto, but the problem with crypto back in 2018 when we started was that there weren't really like a lot of use cases that were consumer facing at all. And so as we thought through what is it that could bring people into this ecosystem, we really said that the like super highway into crypto is gaming. And at the time, CryptoKitties was blowing up, and we were looking at that being like, hey, NFTs are awesome, collectibles are cool, but what you really need is a game. That's what can bring all these people into this ecosystem. And then ultimately, that's what we set out to build, but not just with a focus of how do we get as much money from our user base as possible, but with a focus on how do we build something that can actually support a mass market. So the fact that we do something like 3 to 5 million transactions per day on chain, that to me is a testament to like how much we can actually grow, how much we can continue to have interaction with what we're doing. You know, all of Ethereum is at 1.2 million per day. So like just our game is something like 3 to 5 times the activity of the entire Ethereum layer 1 blockchain daily.
Got it. And when you think about the game itself, pre-Splinterlands or maybe non-blockchain, what game do people think of it as the most, like, what's the comparison?
I think most of my player base usually comes in and they say stuff like, well, I was on the Magic Pro Tour from 2007 to 2009. I think Magic is probably, if not, you know, it's obviously like a pretty big inspiration for us. The game plays fairly differently, but Magic was so inspirational to like trading card games and how they operate. So we've definitely drawn a bunch from that. But you know, the players themselves will tell you frequently that they have a background in that sort of traditional trading card game space.
Got it. And for the person that doesn't know Magic?
Yeah, so I don't know, Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! The whole idea is that you own cards and you can play games with them, right? So one card has certain abilities, a different card has different abilities. They'll battle, and depending on who wins, you get paid cryptocurrency. And then there's an entire ecosystem around that because the rules change, your opponents change, what teams you have change, the mana cost of cards change, which is sort of like a salary cap almost. So every single match is going to be different, and it's figuring out all these different cards and kind of the meta game in this thing is like, how do I use as little resources as possible to maximize my earnings through the play to earn mechanics. The higher your rank, the more prizes you can earn. There are daily quests, there's tournaments, there's season rewards. Because there's so many rewards, there's an entire rental economy. So on any given day, we usually have somewhere around like 1 million cards rented. There's a lot of activity around owning the cards, battling with them to earn, or renting them to passively earn. And there's like a whole ecosystem and community and economy that's just around that.
How much of it is skill versus luck?
We try to design with very little luck. It's not zero. So I would say like matches, maybe 10% of matches are just on luck. Our game has to be built in a way that's deterministic. So every single time that you replay the blockchain, the same team will win every single time for that particular block. But if you play the same match 2 blocks later, it could have a different result because there's different inputs into how it happened. So there are matches where they can go either way, where like depending on who goes first in that round, which there could be some coin flip situations. But most of these matches are very much just skill-based. So if it was more random, you would see a wider distribution of who's at the top of the leaderboard time after time. But that's not what we see. It's pretty clear who the best players are, and that's because it's a highly skill-based game with like a touch of luck.
You know, with COVID and stuff, play a lot of games with my kids, and some of them I'm like, this is 100% luck. Like, this is no fun. Like, for me, obviously. And for my daughter, who's 6 years old, I'm like, come on, don't you want to learn something? Like, the more advanced, the less luck there should be, the more skill there should be. So I'm glad it's so much skill. This podcast is all about marketing moments. And the genesis was always about, why don't we have marketers come on, or business owners like yourself, and choose a moment in time where they took a risk and it paid off. So what do you think is your brave marketing moment?
To me, it's like continuing to build in 2018 as like prices are tanking. My grandfather used to tell me stories about the Great Depression, and he would tell me about how hard it was and how there was so much scarcity and frustration, and even things like finding food could be difficult and whatnot. And when you go back, the price correction that was involved in the Great Depression was a 13%. We initially built on a blockchain called Steam, and we watched prices decline 99%.
I remember Steam.
So it took a savage beating. And we built our game on top of it, so it was pretty terrifying to imagine, how do we keep building when it felt like it went from bad erosion of our ecosystem to like complete economic collapse. And yet we're still here. We still built through it. And that to me was sort of like the scariest time in the history of this business. There aren't a lot of economies or businesses that can survive through a 99% decline. So the technology is really impressive. Like 3-second block times, there's no gas fees, there's human readable account names, there's an entire like marketing and blog based communication platform where you can earn rewards. And that's been very vital to us growing. Very few companies make it to the size that we have by spending as little money as we have on marketing. And that's mostly because we did all kinds of micropayments to our users throughout this process. And an example of this would be somebody plays a match, they go fight in this game, and they win the match and they earn some prize money. Then they go put a story about that onto YouTube. So then their YouTube channel is monetizing. Then they embed the YouTube video inside of a Hive blog. And now when they blog, they're earning upvotes, and those upvotes on this platform have actual monetary value because it's paid out in the Hive cryptocurrency. So now you are getting earnings from Splinterland for just winning the match. You get some for your daily quest. You get some for your season rewards. You're playing some in a tournament and you're earning money there. Some of your spare cards you're renting and you're earning money there. Then you get some revenue from YouTube because it's the passive audience and stream that's there. And then you're getting blogging rewards. So in a lot of this stuff, you're able to like triple dip into your activity while growing your audience, growing your base. And, for most of our players, it's stuff that they're just like super passionate about. They really love the game. It's not like a grind to earn. It's a real like play to earn. It's like almost competitive puzzle solving. And our guys get totally into it.
So let's shift gears to marketing. How did you originally tell the original user base about the game?
My partner, who is the lead dev, asked me to work with him. And I don't want to trespass into his thoughts, but I think some of what appealed to him was that at the time I had one of the largest accounts on the Steam blockchain, had some amount of clout there, and was able to go sort of spread this message to people that were already in crypto, already into blogging. Some good subsection of that are gamers, and that by having an account that was a big vocal component, we were able to go grab people initially. It's like Kickstarter and other things. If you have no platform, you can build something really cool, but just building something cool isn't enough to get people interested in doing it and buying it and growing it and having it be a hit or a success. If you have already a successful project and then you run a Kickstarter, those are the ones that are going for like, millions of dollars typically. I guess my point is that already having an audience makes this stuff easier. And, at the beginning of your journey, when you only have like 5 or 10 followers or something, it's absolutely brutal to build that. And then as you get up to the like millions or tens of millions or even tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands, having that, as you grow, it gets easier and easier to grow further and be able to like pull people in. So I think he picked me to help lead this, in part because he could see this dude has an ability to reach out. I have like a 10 or 15 year sales background. And so I think he could become comfortable that I could take this message to other people and be like, come participate and see what we're doing.
And so where did you find those people? From Steam and you brought them over? Or did you have like an initial marketing campaign per se?
I mean, we've done almost no marketing. It's almost embarrassing how little that we've done. So we've tried in a bunch of ways to go do like standard marketing. Here's some Facebook ads and YouTube and Google. And like, we haven't had a lot of success with that. But what we have been incredibly successful at, which is really even more sticky than that, is word of mouth advertising. That it's like the players are telling other players, hey, you need to check this out. Hey, you need to participate in this. Hey, you need to do that. So they're the ones that are really helping to spread this game and helping to get this thing out there. So what we've done is try to build a big community so that there's lots of people spreading the word. And so for us, it has a lot to do with building a Discord. We're up over 100,000 people now. And we do a fair amount to vet it, so it's not like billions of bots, but it's actually like humans that are in there. There's a ton of engagement. There's like 50 different channels. People are chatting on all of them. Language channels. The sun never sets on the Splinterlands Discord. So we have a lot of engagement, and a lot of that engagement is from extremely passionate players. The guys that they go to the comic shop, and in the basement there would be like some Magic the Gathering tournament. COVID happened, so there's not a lot of in-person events. So now you see a lot of that same kind of spirit of the like hardcore nerd that loves these games. They're in our Discord arguing about certain ability combinations, which one's better, which one's worse, you know, why this card is a good airdrop, what we should do next. Part yelling at each other, part yelling at us, part just shooting the breeze with each other, sharing their opinions about this whole ecosystem and just kind of hanging with us.
And as far as marketing that you've had to pay for, have you seen any success with any of it?
There is one nice exception to the entire failure. You're going to be happy to hear this. It's Brave. All of this other stuff is like, it's a great way to lose a lot of money. You know, one of the only places where we have any kind of success at all. The core gaming audience that we have are people that play games and love crypto. Those two dudes, they're kind of the same nerd. You know, you go to like that hardcore Magic the Gathering convention or store or tournament, and you see those like really intense people, but they know every single rule set, every single card, every single ability. They're like super detail focused. And there's like a nerdiness to that. The same person that loves all of those stats, abilities, combinations, min-maxing, and all of that, they have a lot of affinity towards cryptocurrency too. It's part gaming, but now it's this financial aspect of gaming. You have a lot of the community that overlaps, but it's using a part of your brain that's just so focused on complexity. Now you're not talking about ability combinations. Now you're talking about consensus algorithms. You know, now you're not talking about stats, but now you're talking about like block times. There's a lot of the complexity overlap between these two that make your hardcore crypto guy and your gamer guy, it's the same nerd. So that's the core of our audience. And we have an easier time convincing crypto people to be gaming with us than we can convince gamers to do crypto with us. That still seems to be a bigger barrier of entry. What Brave has done a really nice job of is getting all of these crypto hounds like wrapped around this platform and utilizing it and building a community here. So I think that we do a better job getting people out of this community and being like, come play our games. And that's like a pretty low barrier of entry. And we get lots of people by doing that. It is a lot harder when we're like, hey, you guys are a gaming community, come do crypto with us. It's still a much bigger ask just in general. And I would blame government and regulations for that more than anything. But that's, I think, the state of where the sentiment and player base is.
On our side, we couldn't agree more. I mean, we have 50 million users, about to be 55 million users. We just hired a CMO, so soon enough, let's see if we get to 100 million users. What we do on our side is we run surveys, and we just ask people, just tell us about yourself. And there's no reason for them to lie. And 3 in 4 of them, so 75% of them, have traded a cryptocurrency in the past month. So it's like, boom, you're right. They're crypto people. And then separately, we asked a gaming question. Do you consider yourself a hardcore gamer? And 1 in 2 said yes. And then the Venn diagram is like, to your point, is pretty good. So if you're a gaming company that have blockchain, like there is, there's other places to advertisers, but like we are the place for that. So it's good to see that.
And we put a bunch of money into the platform because we see this is one of the best opportunities.
Let's talk about the future a little bit. Where does blockchain gaming go? Do big gaming organizations start adopting blockchain, or is it too late because their code's already been written? How do you see the future of blockchain gaming?
We are so freaking early, it's unreal. I mean, there's still people that have no idea what an NFT is, that they can't get past an NFT and just ownership, and they haven't really understood that NFTs they're ultimately, initially they start as digital deeds. They show you that you have ownership of this thing. But then pretty soon they go into programmable assets. Like fungible tokens can be programmable money, but these are things that could be programmable assets. That to me is a technological leap forward that nobody on this planet really has a full grasp of just how big that can be. Everything that you own, touch, taste, smell, feel could have a programmable aspect. And I think that the human ingenuity that we have in order to have if-then statements that can create any kind of experience any human would ever want, it's going to begin and end with NFTs. And gaming in particular, the number of things you can unlock in the real world is fairly limited. It's confined to the things that actually exist. But the things that exist in virtual spaces, metaverses, game worlds are completely infinite and have none of that kind of like real world tangible limitations in terms of supply. So there's just so many more places where we as people and designers can make NFT experiences, particularly in worlds and games. And I think they're going to be some of the most sought after assets in the entire world for generations to come.
I think about NFTs. So there's like 12,000 different cryptocurrencies. And so there's a lot of supply out there, but there's only 21 million Bitcoin. But then when you look at NFTs and you think of them as like their own mini currency, it does become infinite. And you have this incredible amount of supply. So how do prices of NFTs continue to rise if there continues to be so much supply, or in a way, printing of money out there?
So it's not just money. Scarcity is a hell of a drug, right? So yes, they're infinite, but in certain projects and in certain spaces, they're not. I'll put this into terms that maybe Splinterlands players can get. So we have two main assets that are out there beyond our fungible tokens. We have the NFTs that are part of our game, and we have this new class of NFTs called land. And with the game cards that we put out there, we've told our players time and time again, every single year, we are planning on doing another series of cards. And part of the reason to do that is to keep inexpensive cards coming into the market so that we can constantly get new players. And so it's not quite just inflating, because inflating is there's no cost. If we just handed these things out, that would be a real drain on the economy. Whereas when you sell them, it's not the same type of inflation.
Isn't that an airdrop though?
But that's different. Well, airdrops can just be completely inflationary. If there's no purchase on the other side of that, then it's just an inflation of a different type. So it's easy to obscure, and sometimes they're worth it and sometimes they're not. We do some of that, but it's about doing that for promotional reasons, not for economic overall balancing of some sort. Let's compare what we do with the cards of trying to make sure that every year there's an inexpensive way to access and get into the game with land. We sold 150,000 plots of land, and we keep saying it's extremely unlikely that we produce more land. Maybe there's a couple game zones where it's a PvP zone and there's some land that you're fighting over in that. Imagine if there's a pirate ship game or a warship game. Maybe there's some land tiles that are specific just for building warships. So there could be little mini pieces that are spun off. But in terms of land, we really don't see, maybe once a decade or something, we'll release some more. But we want to keep that ridiculously scarce. And so as a consequence, we think that'll be pretty premium. An example would be we sold it for $10 and we've seen it sell as high as $1,000 per plot because there's just not enough for everybody. So scarcity is power, and yes, there's an infinite amount of all kinds of NFTs and all kinds of sports things and non-sports things and fantasy things. But in this one world that is populated by lots of people, if you want land, there's only 150,000 of them. There's not enough for everybody. Please push and shove. So that's how you have an infinite supply of whatever anybody's mind can create. But if there's scarcity in the thing that people actively want to do in this one ecosystem, that's where your true scarcity should come from. Not as a measure of every little NFT and every single token that could ever be created, but you're really looking at the supply and demand of this just one project, this one type of NFT. What's the availability of that? And that's where the scarcity comes in. But the benefit of that is that instead of like real estate in Boston, where there's only so many people that want to own a house in Boston, now you're talking about digital asset ownership in this metaverse, which is accessible to everybody in the world. So you still have that same kind of constricted supply like you might have for housing in a certain market, but now you're not limited to just the people that want to live there or rent there. It's literally open to anybody that has internet access. And so for that reason, I hear you about, well, you could just, somebody else can mint another NFT. That's okay. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's any value there. You're still talking about just these projects with production rates. And I think that's what makes those things so freaking valuable. And in fact, I think ultimately NFTs will be a bigger asset class than real estate, because you will have a global audience fighting over a limited number of scarce assets. And those assets are programmable and can earn you money in ways that like your house can't, because it's not a digital programmable asset.
Yeah. Last couple of questions. I call you Aggie, but you go by Aggroed. Where does that name come from?
It's a gamer handle. So, I was born as Blair Reich or Jesse Reich, but a couple of years ago, I guess it's many more than that, like 10 years, 15 years, I started playing WoW. And I had an orc warrior, and it's a tanking term. You aggro things. So it's the past tense of to aggro. But I like it because there's an inertia about it. Because in my own journey, I'm like a PhD chemist. I had a nice life. I was doing all the normie things. And government had to sort of like aggro me to the point where I was like, okay, I will do something different. Because I was like sort of happily swimming down that stream. And then I started looking around being like, something is wrong with everything. But I had to get poked to get out of my comfort zone.
If you were to recommend one person that I should interview for the Brave Marketer podcast, who would you recommend?
It's probably too self-serving to say this, but my co-founder is probably one of the best economic geniuses in this space. Not only is he an amazing programmer, but his mind is just so freaking sharp. In part because he's able to go sort of absorb all of the best things that are out there and try to figure out, how do we build economies that work for everybody?
Any last words for the listeners?
So if you guys aren't playing Splinterlands, I would ask you to come join us. If you're here on Brave, I think you'll find that there's a fair amount of overlap between the mission of these two companies. We're a crypto gaming business, and our focus is on bringing other people into crypto. And we're hoping that through mass adoption of cryptocurrency, we'll see more peace, prosperity, and freedom in the world. If that sounds appealing to you, I would ask you to support our mission, buy our cards, play our game, communicate with our community members, form friends, and be entertained the whole way through.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast, Aggie. And lastly, how can listeners get in touch with you directly?
Just through Discord. We're at discord.splinterlands.com. Come hang out with us, and I'm always in there. My door's always open. Just send me a direct message, and happy to talk through folks through Discord.
If you like what you heard today and found it valuable, it would be super helpful if you took 1 minute to leave us a short review in Apple Podcasts. Every review counts in helping us get to our show in more ears. On one final note, if you have a brand, product, or service that you'd like to get in front of Brave's over 50 million users, please email us at adsales@brave.com and let us know you are a podcast listener to unlock one of two perks. If your budget is under $10,000 a month, we will bump you up to the top of our self-serve waiting list. Or if your budget is $10,000 or over a month, you'll qualify for a 25% podcast listener discount. Again, email us at adsales@brave.com. And finally, a huge thanks to my brother, Ari Devoren, for all of the music that you hear. And until next time.